The stars were silent, cold, endless. But tonight, something moved. A deep space probe, orbiting a forgotten dead world named Grathos, picked up an image. Not clear, just a shadow, massive, slow, floating above the planet like a silent god. The probe's AI blinked, confused. Then it caught a signalode, cracked, ancient dot. The signal was only 3 words. We have returned. The image and signal reached the Galactic Assembly on Centauri Prime 3 days later. They barely reacted. Another ghost signal, muttered High Chancellor Velrix, waving the data away. We get thousands of these every year. It's likely radiation interference, said Admiral Kozon. Nothing to worry about. But someone was listening carefully. His name was Ralvek, a quiet man, old and thin, with long gray horns and deep black eyes. He worked in the Assembly's Historical Records Division. Far from the spotlight, buried in forgotten books and broken languages. When he saw the signal's waveform, his heart stopped. This can't be, he whispered. The frequency was not random. It was old Earth code, used before the humans vanished from the galaxy hundreds of years ago. He stayed up all night comparing the waveform. He opened dusty files, digital ruins of a time no one dared to study. Humanity was a legend, now some said. They never existed. Others said they died off, but Ralvek knew better. They had vanished. On purpose he found it to match in the forgotten archive of Aegis protocols, a myth, a warning. One line written in faded ink in a human language called English. Prepare. They are watching. Ralvek's hands trembled. He checked the signal's source again. It came from the exact location mentioned in the myth, the coordinates known as the Graves of War. A system long avoided, cursed by ancient superstition. This is not a coincidence, Ralvek said aloud. He ran to the assembly the next morning. No one wanted to listen. You're digging into fairy tales, said Counselor Zeroin. They were wiped out centuries ago, added another. Humans are dust, if they ever existed. No, Ralvek said firmly. They're not dust. They're shadows, and they're back. The Chancellor looked annoyed. Then what do you suggest, old man? Prepare for a war with ghosts. Ralvek took a breath. I suggest we listen to the warning. But he was laughed out of the chamber. That night, Ralvek returned to his private study. He activated a secret file he had kept hidden for decades, a collection of every trace of humanity ever found. Old images, stories, and above all, their final known message before vanishing. He played it now, for the first time in years. A woman's voice, clear and calm. We leave by choice. You will not find us. But if you awaken what we buried, we will come. We will come not as friends, not as saviors. We will return as judgment. The file ended. Ralvek sat in silence. Someone has awakened it, he whispered, and now judgment is coming. He didn't sleep that night. 3 days later, a second signal echoed through the galaxy. This time, it came from 5 different systems at once. Same shadow, same message, we have returned. On the edges of the known galaxy, trade routes began to break down. Ships vanished. Stations went dark. No one knew why, no answers. Only silence. One merchant vessel escaped with a half-broken recording. A single image, a black triangle blotting out the stars. Impossible, the pilot screamed in the audio, his voice full of panic. It's not a ship, it's a continent. Then static. The Galactic Assembly met in emergency session. The panic had started. It could be the Varnox, someone shouted. Double quotes, no dash, no Varnox ship is that big, another said. The Chancellor stood and raised her voice. This is clearly some unknown threat. We will investigate. But let us be clear, we will not be ruled by fear. As she spoke, her screen blinked. A new message appeared, not sent by any known channel, not traceable, not even digital, just for words burned into the screen. Do you remember us? The room went silent. Ralvek, watching from the lower seats, stood slowly. He turned to the others. You should have listened. Later that evening, he walked through the city alone. People were beginning to notice strange things. The stars looked wrong. Some constellations were missing. Not because they had moved, but because something was in front of them. The sky was darker than usual. He looked up. His heart froze. There was no moon that night, yet something blocked part of the stars. Round, silent, watching, a shape that didn't belong. Ralvek returned to his study and made one final entry in his log. They have returned. The myths were not myths. They were records. Warnings. Humanity did not vanish. They prepared. They watched. And now, they come not to speak. They come to remind the galaxy why it feared them. He stared at his screen. The last scan from the Grathos probe had just updated. The shadow had moved, no longer orbiting. It was coming closer. With it, thousands of others, 10,000 warships, each one bigger than a city, silent, cold, terrifying. They did not send threats. They sent silence, because humans had already spoken, centuries ago, and no one listened. Now the myths walked again, and the stars would never be the same. The galaxy had no answers, only questions. Fear spread like fire. 10 major star systems had reported strange shadows in orbit. Not one ship sent to investigate had returned. Entire fleets gone. No sound, the assembly began to panic behind closed doors. But one person had already accepted the truth. Ralvek. He sat alone in the dark corners of the central archives. He wasn't allowed there, not without permission, but he had stolen access codes long ago. This was the place where the oldest records were locked away, the things no one was allowed to talk about. The myths, the lies, the truths, he whispered. To himself, we thought they were extinct, but they were just sleeping. Hook 2 to 5 minute suspense. Ralvek broke the final lock on a file labeled Project. Skyfall Human Exodus event. Inside were ancient transmission logs dating back 500 years. They were from the last days of Earth's contact with the galaxy. The humans were preparing to vanish, but not because they were losing. No, the logs told a different story. Humanity had won a war so big it nearly broke reality. Against an enemy the rest of the galaxy didn't even remember. A war fought in silence, behind cloaked systems, using weapons the galaxy had never seen before, never wanted to see again. Ralvek's hands shook as he read the final line. We will erase ourselves, disappear from all maps, leave no signals. If the galaxy ever forgets what it did to us, if it dares repeat it, then we will return, and this time there will be no mercy. The log ended. Ralvek stared at the screen, his heart pounding. The galaxy didn't just forget the humans, it erased them hundreds of years ago. After using humanity to fight a terrible war, the Galactic Assembly turned against them. They feared the humans called them unstable, too powerful, too emotional, so they betrayed them. They sent fleets to contain Earth, but Earth was ready. No battles were recorded, no deaths confirmed. The fleets that went to Earth never returned. And then Earth went dark. The humans shut down every satellite, every beacon, every system. They erased themselves and disappeared from the galaxy, and the galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. They built stories around it, called it legend, said humans were just a mistaken evolutionary fluke, that they were gone forever. But Ralvek had just read the truth. The humans didn't vanish. They watched, they waited, and now they were back. He copied the files onto a secret drive and left quietly. If the assembly found out, they would destroy the records. No one wanted the truth. He sent an anonymous message across the stars. To pirates, scientists, traders, anyone who might believe. They are returning. Look at Grathos. Look at the blocked stars. These are not myths. Prepare. He hoped someone would listen. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, more systems reported strange things. A freighter passing through Sector 5 to 92 stopped sending messages mid-transit. Another vessel found it drifting, untouched, no signs of struggle. But all crew members were gone. Their clothes were still folded neatly on the chairs. A single message was found written on the walls. In English, "You forgot us." On Nexa, for a peaceful agricultural world, the sky turned red for 2 minutes. No known weather system could explain it. Then, a human voice echoed in every device, across all frequencies. "We remember what you did." No one could trace where the message came from. It simply appeared and disappeared. The assembly began emergency meetings, but it was already too late. The fear had begun, Ralvek knew. There wasn't much time. He traveled to the outer edge of the system-annulled research station long abandoned, called Ethropost. He hoped to find an old friend there, someone who once studied pre-Exodus Earth with him. Her name was Dr. Thari, Dr. ENN. She was one of the last people alive who actually believed in the human myths. The station floated in darkness, orbiting a dying red star. Most of its lights were dead. The halls creaked as if haunted. Thari. Ralvek called as he stepped into the old labs. A weak voice answered, "I thought you'd come." She looked older than he remembered, thin, pale, but her eyes were alive. "You've seen the shadows too," she said. Ralvek nodded. "They've returned." "I knew they would," she whispered. "They never left. They were just waiting." Sat together. Reading the last real documents on humanity, Thari pointed to an old image, one of the last human ships ever recorded. It looked like a city wrapped in black armor. Sharp, silent, cold. They called it the Harbinger, she said. A Titan-class warship, one of 10,000. "No one believed it existed," Ralvek replied. "They'll believe now," she said, tapping her terminal. "I picked up something last night." She showed him the scan. It wasn't just one ship, it was a wall. Thousands of ships aligned, in perfect formation. Hidden just beyond known space. Watching, waiting. Ralvek stared at the screen. "We need to warn the galaxy." Thari shook her head. "They won't listen. They're still laughing at old stories. But those stories are waking up now." As they spoke, something shifted in the stars. In a nearby system, a military convoy vanished in real time, no explosion, no distress call. Their final message was just 2 words. "They're here." The myths were true. The silence was over. The sky was no longer safe, and judgment was coming. The people of Veltrax 3 woke to darkness. The sky wasn't cloudy. The stars weren't hidden by weather. Something was blocking them above the city of Janor. A strange shadow stretched across the sky, silent, cold. It moved slowly like a mountain floating through space. No lights, no sound, no heat signature. The local defense scanners couldn't explain it. They said, "Nothing detected." But every eye on Veltrax 3 saw the impossible. Something enormous was above them. The orbital station Kosanine went silent first, then a second station. Then to science ships, by the time the military responded, 3 moons were already out of visual range, not because they moved, but because they were behind the growing object, now stretching across the upper atmosphere. Main plot, Commander Larak. Voln stood on the main deck of Veltrax 3's Planetary Defense Command. He stared at the screens, hands shaking. All stations status. He demanded no contact with Kosanine, no signals from Blackbelt Station. Visuals confirm a massive structure, in low orbit, but no ID, no power readings. How can something that big be invisible to our systems? Larak asked. No one answered, because no one knew. In the city streets below, people pointed up. Some took pictures. Others simply ran inside and locked their doors. Even the children knew something was wrong. The shadow in the sky didn't move. Like a normal ship, it floated like a nightmare. A civilian drone accidentally flew too close. It vanished instantly, no flash, no sound, just gone. Every device within 10 kilometers of the shadow's edge failed. Phones, cameras, communications. The silence grew louder. Back inside command, alarms finally screamed. The AI had detected a visual match. Larak stepped closer. The screen zoomed in on the silhouette above them, a black ship, longer than 10 cities, with angled armor that looked like sharp wings. Its hull had no windows, no markings, except one, a single glowing symbol in ancient Terran glyph. Ralvek had seen that symbol before, and now, so had Larak. The computer beeped softly. "Match found. Titan-class human warship. File name, Mythfleet. Impossible," whispered Larak. This is from a legend. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Assembly, the footage from Veltrax 3 was shown across all systems. Panic spread instantly. Some members of the Assembly demanded war. Others demanded silence. But the footage spoke for itself. The shadow in orbit. The loss of contact. The glyph. Every race that once mocked the humans now sat in quiet horror. The myths weren't myths anymore. They were orbiting Veltrax-3 back on the planet. Suddenly, all power across Janor cut out. Lights died. Vehicles stopped. Communications failed. Only one screen remained, active Larak's personal datapad. It began to play a message, a humanvoice.com mail. This is not a threat. This is not an invasion. This is a memory. You destroyed our world. You betrayed your own promise. And now, we remember. The datapad turned off by itself. Larak's breath froze in his chest. They weren't just here. They were watching. A few brave ships launched from Veltrax 3 to investigate. One got close. Its cameras showed a small part of the black ship's surface. It wasn't just metal. It had names carved into it. Thousands of names-old human languages, etched deep into the hull. Each name lit up in red, one by one. Then the transmission stopped. A new signal echoed across the galaxy. This time it was sent in every known language. Veltrax was the first world to break the Earth Treaty. It will now remember. Twist from the shadow. 5 smaller ships broke off. They weren't attacking. They weren't even armed. They descended gently to the surface. They landed across Veltrax's 5 largest cities. Then they opened. What came out weren't soldiers, they were drones. Round, black, quiet. They floated above the ground, projecting holograms. Each hologram showed the same thing. A timeline, a war, a betrayal, and a sentence. Thousands of civilians gathered to watch. The truth was being revealed. The galaxy had lied. The humans were betrayed after they won a war for the assembly. The other species turned on them out of fear, surrounded Earth, tried to control it, and humanity vanished. Not because they were weak, but because they had something worse than revenge. Memory Larak sat alone in the command center, watching the sky. The massive black ship above them had not moved but now it was no longer just a shadow, it was a reminder, and everyone knew what came next, because the myth had always said when the sky goes dark, the judgment begins. The emergency lights inside the Galactic Council chamber glowed red for the first time in over 200 years. Chancellor Velrix Exera stood in silence as the recording from Veltrax 3 played again. The shadow in the sky, the ancient human glyph, the message burned into every system. Veltrax was the first world to break the Earth Treaty. It will now remember. Dozens of species were in the room. Some were whispering, some trembling. Others, silent dot, and then the Chancellor did what history would later call the greatest mistake in galactic memory. She raised her voice. We do not bow to ghosts. Main plot, the Galactic Council voted 7-5 in favor of military action. Fleet. Arcanus 12, one of the strongest fleets in Council history, was deployed to Veltrax 3's orbit. Over 300 ships, carriers, interceptors, dreadnoughts. They were sent not to attack but to force. Contact Chancellor Velrix called it a show of strength. Her advisors whispered warnings, but she waved them away. Legends do not destroy fleets. These humans are simply survivors hiding behind old myths. We will talk, and they will listen. But they never got the chance. As Fleet Arcanist 12 approached Veltrax 3, they received a silent broadcast. One image, one word, a digital flag from old Earth, and under it, the message, you broke silence first. Admiral Jurek, commander of the fleet, ordered full scan sweeps. But the warship above Veltrax 3 did not react. It just existed so massive, it blocked light from the nearby moons. Its presence was unnatural. It bent gravity, sound, even time around it felt. Wrong suddenly, all 300 ships received an audio transmission, a voice. Mail.com, human, your history is stained with cowardice. You erased us. You betrayed us. Now we return what was given. The voice paused. Judgment begins. Every ship's system froze. Weapons offline. Engines stalled. COMMs scrambled. For 10 seconds, the fleet floated helpless in silence. Then the stars blinked out. Above them, without sound, 9,999 more ships arrived. One moment there was space. The next, a wall of darkness. Thousands of black, titanic warships, forming a perfect hemisphere around the planet and fleet. ARKAN is -12. It was not a battle formation. It was a burial shroud. Admiral Jurek ordered a retreat, but it was already too late. Each ship received its own private broadcast. Old footage. Human soldiers fighting alongside alien allies during the Old War, helping, saving, winning. Then betrayal, the same aliens turning on the humans, attacking Earth, wiping records, calling them unstable, dangerous. One line appeared on every screen. We remember who you were. Now you will remember who we are. Fleet Arcanist 12 never fired a shot because they never got the chance. Within 40 seconds, every ship was gone. Explosions, no wreckage, just ... gone. Back in the Galactic Council, the news hit like thunder. First came silence, then the fear, then the denial. It's not possible. They must have cloaked. They're hiding. But the truth arrived seconds later, on every planet, every screen, every broadcast tower across the galaxy. A single image of Veltrax's orbit, empty, dead silent, and still under shadow. Then came the message. We are not myths. We are the memory you buried. And now we are your future. Meanwhile, in the outer systems, Ralvek sat alone in the back of a transport ship. He had seen the reports. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply said, "They warned us." Dr. Thari Dren, sitting beside him, looked pale. "They didn't destroy the fleet," she whispered. "They erased it." "Yes," Ralvek said, "because this is not war." "Then what is it?" she asked. Ralvek looked out the window. "It's a trial, and judgment has started." Galactic reaction. Across the stars, panic spread. All major powers called emergency meetings. Ships began retreating from border systems. Planets shut off spaceports. Smugglers dumped cargo to flee. Faster. Trade lines broke. The economy shook, but none of it mattered, because in the shadows of deep space, more warships had begun to move. Planets that once betrayed Earth centuries ago now glowed red on ancient Earth records. They were being marked, and humanity was not sending diplomats. Twist. Ending. A secret meeting was held in the assembly. One counselor Hrovik Marstood and admitted a forgotten truth. "We signed a treaty with Earth long ago, before they vanished." "What treaty?" the chancellor asked. Hrovik's voice trembled. "We promised never to weaponize their technology, never to betray their trust, and never to erase them from the records." She stared at him. "And did we break that?" He looked away. "Broke all of it, and far above them, somewhere beyond the veil of stars." 10,000 warships waited in silence. Not to invade, not to rule, but to remind the galaxy what happens when myths are buried and justice is denied. The galaxy trembled, but most still didn't understand what was coming. After the destruction of Fleet Arcanist 12, panic grew. Yet many leaders still hoped it was an isolated Actan accident, or a powerful but restrained warning. No one wanted to admit the truth. This wasn't a myth waking up. It was a power the galaxy had forgotten how to fear. But the humans had not forgotten anything. Across the galactic core, worlds shut down communications. Borders were sealed. The assembly sent messages of peace, pleas for negotiation, and requests for understanding. But there were no replies. The human fleet didn't speak again. It didn't broadcast threats. It simply moved. Slowly, silently, and always with purpose. While the council begged for a diplomatic solution, the next target was already chosen. The world was Norlax Prime, a powerful trade hub known for its wealth, its arrogance, and its history of betrayal. Centuries ago, during the Earth War, Norlax's leaders had broken a direct alliance with humanity, turning on their fleets in the final hours. It had led to massive losses. Those records were deleted from official archives, but Earth had not forgotten. Norlax was about to remember. It began with silence. At exactly 3 o'clock, Norlax Prime Standard Time, every orbital satellite powered down at once. Civilian ships vanished from scanners. Space traffic control officers shouted in confusion as their systems blinked red. Then static entire spaceports across the capital city received a black screen. Then a symbol, no words, just a glowing white glyph, the old Earth sigil, once used in war. Within 10 seconds, a shadow spread across Norlax's upper orbit. Enormous, no sound, no energy spike, just presence. The population below had no idea what it meant. They walked outside. They pointed at the sky. Children laughed. Then everything changed. Without warning, every defense grid, every space cannon, and every planetary shield shut down. Artificial gravity across 5 military bases failed. Ships hovered helplessly in low orbit, unable to move. Then, nothing. Not a single beam was fired. Not a single threat was spoken. The human warship simply hovered. That was when it struck. There were no explosions, no heat trails, no dramatic impacts. Just pure, surgical silence. The main command tower of Norlax's defense authority simply disappeared one moment standing, the next, gone. The air shimmered, and in a blink, it was erased. No smoke, no fire, no debris. Then the second strike came. 4 orbital command cruisers vanished at once, vaporized. No distress calls, just absence. The fleet around Norlax crumbled without a single warning. Officers screamed into deadcoms. Civilians ran into shelters, but there was no war to hide from. There were no armies, no tanks, no invaders. The enemy was above the manned. It didn't need to land. Across the government complex, every screen suddenly activated. One message appeared, written in every galactic language, in glowing human script. This is not war. This is memory. The message stayed on screen for 5 seconds. Then all screens turned black. Then the voice, cold.com, human. We gave you peace. You answered with betrayal. You wiped our name. Now you will carry it forever. The voice fell silent. Across Norlax Prime, every communication tower exploded in perfect sequence, as if erased by a scalpel. Not one civilian was harmed. Not one market or hospital was touched. But every symbol of power, every memory of pride, was gone. Then the shadow in the sky moved. The human ship turned slowly and began to rise. Within moments, it was gone from visual range. The skies cleared, the systems returned. But Norlax had changed. People wept openly in the streets. Military officers sat in stunned silence, staring at holoscreens. The sky had opened for just 3 minutes, and it had taken everything that mattered in the assembly hall far away. Chancellor Velrix stood frozen as reports came in. Was no response, no retaliation, no invasion. The aide stammered. It was like a warning, but not to us. Velrix turned slowly. Then to who? Ralvek answered from the shadows of the chamber. He had returned uninvited, holding ancient scrolls and data chips no one wanted to read. To history, he said, they're not fighting the present, they're fixing the past. The room fell silent. An emergency broadcast played moments later, not from humans, but from Norlax Prime itself. A live feed. Their government leader, once proud and untouchable, stood before a broken podium. He spoke into the camera, pale and shaking. We, we acknowledge what was done. We ask for peace. We accept guilt. The transmission ended with no response. Earth never asked for an apology. Earth came only to remember and to force the galaxy to remember with it, across dozens of systems. Panic turned to dread. Ancient worlds buried their old war records. Libraries were sealed. Propaganda was scrubbed from public networks. Everyone now asked the same question. Are we next? And still, the human fleet didn't speak. It simply moved, silently, patiently, never traveled alone. Everywhere the fleet went, silence followed. The galaxy was still reeling. Norlax Prime was not destroyed, but it was broken. Its pride, its power, its silence, all shattered. But the humans didn't take resources, didn't demand surrender. They only removed one thing: memory. The memory of control, the memory of betrayal. Every ship, every drone, every warship still hung over the stars, but they hadn't spoken since. The fleet had gone quiet again, and that was far more terrifying than any battle in a small dark cell on the outer moon of Calthor. An old woman sat on a steel bench, her hands folded, her eyes blank. Her name was Erin Drell, once a scholar of Earth history. Now a prisoner, she had been locked away decades ago by the Galactic Council for one simple crime: remembering too much. She had studied the Earth War, had warned that the humans would return. No one listened, they mocked her, silenced her. But now, they needed her. The prison doors opened. 2 officers in gray armor stood beside an older man in a deep purple, Cloak Counselor Hervik Mar. He stepped forward, slow, careful. Erin, he said softly, they're back. She didn't speak at first. She just looked up, her eyes, calm, as if she had been expecting this moment for years. You didn't listen, she said. Ralvik sighed. We need to know why. Why now? Why like this? She stood slowly, her legs weak, her voice sharp. "You want the truth now. After erasing it for 5 centuries, yes," he said. She smiled without joy. "Then take me to the Vault of Echoes." Hidden deep within the ice mountains of Rythernine, far from any city, there was a forgotten structure buried in the rock. It was once called the Pact Hall, built during the final days of the human alliance with the galaxy, sealed when Earth vanished. All records marked myth, but Erin knew the code to open it as the doors slid open. Lights flickered on old lights, older than most stars, now burning in the sky. Dust danced in the air. Rows of ancient servers hummed to life. Holograms appeared, flickering with age, showing human faces, maps, ship diagrams. In the center of the room stood a large black pillar. The symbol of Earth burned softly at its top. "This," Erin said, "is where Earth gave its last warning." Hrovic stepped forward. "Play it." The pillar glowed. Then a figure appeared, a human woman, tall, strong, wearing a black uniform with a blue stripe across her chest. Her voice was calm, controlled, but filled with something no one in the room had heard in centuries. Conviction. To those who find this message, know this: we do not run, we do not flee. We vanish because we must. The enemy we fought was beyond your understanding, and when we won, you betrayed us. You feared our strength, our minds, our refusal to kneel. You erased us from the records. You buried our name, but we will return, not in anger, not in hatred. We will return as the final mirror, and you will see who you are. The message ended. Silence followed. Erin spoke softly. They didn't just vanish, they evolved. Somewhere far from that frozen vault, the human fleet continued moving. Not quickly, not randomly, deliberately. They moved from system to system, appearing over worlds that once took part in the betrayal. They never fired unless provoked, but each world they passed changed on Zorvathate. The skies cracked as 1,000 warships floated over the ocean cities. No messages, no damage. But every communication satellite was reprogrammed to play the old Earth anthem music that had not echoed. Across the stars and centuries, on Kelris, a war museum was hacked. All displays turned into a visual timeline of Earth's suffering. Every lie replaced with the truth. Children wept. Elders fell to their knees. On Vialor, the planet where the betrayal vote was first passed, the humans didn't even arrive. They simply sent a black cube to the capital. When opened, it showed a single video of a young human soldier burning a live shot in the back by so-called allies. The message below: we remember everything. The galaxy was no longer in control, it was on trial. In the assembly, Counselor Vel stood in silence as more systems reported similar events. "This isn't revenge," she muttered. "No," Hrovic replied, "it's judgment." Another report came in, this time from the outer station Trelosfe, one of the last neutral research stations. It had recently discovered something strange, a black data core embedded inside an asteroid. The station had been studying it for weeks. Unsure where it came from, it activated on its own, and then it spoke. This galaxy was built on memory, and now it will be rebuilt with truth. Then the station lost all power when lights came back. The asteroid was gone. The humans had left no clues about where Earth actually was. All scanners aimed toward Sol found nothing. No signals, no planets, just empty space. But Erin knew the truth. She stood on a cliff overlooking the icy valleys of Rythernine, the sky dark with approaching ships, and whispered, "They don't want us to find Earth." Hrovic asked, "Why not?" She turned slowly, her voice soft. "Because Earth isn't a place anymore. It's a decision. Across the stars, leaders, soldiers, civilians, everyone faced the same. Truth, the humans had returned not to destroy the galaxy, but to force it to face what it had become. They weren't invaders, they were mirrors. And the worst part, the galaxy saw it deserved it all. The sky above Halon 6 turned black at exactly 4 o'clock Galactic Standard Time. Not from clouds, not from war, from silence, from sighs, from the slow, steady descent of something that was never supposed to exist. Something built in secret, hidden. For centuries, a shape so large, it stretched from horizon to horizon, covering the stars like a curtain. The people of Halen 6 had only a few seconds of warning before all communications shut off. No calls, no broadcasts. The planet's orbit was full of ships, one moment defense satellites, trade lanes, research stations, and empty the next. Every object in orbit vanished without sound or sign. Entire fleets erased dot from below. The sky looked strange, too smooth, too dark, as if someone had painted over the stars. The news feeds called it a power outage, but the people knew better. Something was above them, watching, and it wasn't speaking. In a high tower overlooking the Halon capital, Governor Selic Ron stared. Through a clear wall of glass, his aides shouted behind him. Military commanders screamed into deadcoms. Emergency beacons flashed red. But none of it mattered, because Ron could see it. A shape, gigantic, silent, unblinking. "We have to respond," someone yelled. "With what?" Ron whispered. "Throw rocks at a mountain." His voice was hollow. He had seen the reports. What happened to Norlax Prime? To Fleet Arcanistwelve? To the Council fleets that had dared approach? All gone. Not destroyed, removed. And now the same judgment had come for Halon. He remembered his planet's history. Halon 6 had once supplied weapons during the Earth betrayal. Quietly, secretly. But history remembered. And now the sky remembered too. Over the planet, power grids began failing. City by city, district by district. Hospitals went dark. Vehicles drifted to a stop. AI systems glitched into static. But nothing crashed. Nothing exploded. It was as if someone had pressed pause on an entire world. Then, the sky lit up. Not with fire, but with memory, above every major city. Black drones descended slowly, releasing glowing cubes that floated silently in the air. The cubes projected holograms into the sky massive, clear in every language. They showed the truth, humans. Once welcomed, fighting for the galaxy, then surrounded, betrayed, forgotten. Footage followed files no one should have had, hidden transmissions, secret council meetings, backroom deals. Orders to erase all records of Earth's contributions to galactic peace. Then the final images. Human ships burning, children screaming, cities falling. All at the hands of their own allies. The sky turned red, and the message appeared. The stars forgot. But we did not. Governor Ron fell to his knees. Around the world, people cried. Not in fear, but in shame, because they had believed the lie. Now the truth covered the sky like a storm. Meanwhile, across the stars, the human fleet moved. Not fast, not rushed, like a predator taking its time. Their ships passed through systems, without firing a shot, but every time they appeared. The same pattern followed. Silence, blackout, memory. Entire starports vanished. Defense stations drifted. Powerless, and in every place they went, a message was left behind, not written in words. But in absence, the galaxy was beginning to understand this. It was not an invasion. It was a correction. In the Galactic Assembly, fear had become normal. The council chamber was almost empty. Many members had fled. Others resigned. Some had simply vanished. Chancellor Velrix no longer spoke from the podium. She hid behind walls of advisors and panic meetings. But one voice still stood tall. RALVEK addressed the council again, not to beg for peace, but to tell them the truth. "This was never about war," he said. "This is a mirror. The humans are showing us what we truly are." Councillor Haruvik sat beside him. "Then how do we answer?" Demralvik looked up at the sky. "We don't." On distant worlds, the pattern continued. Yarnock 4, known for mining Earth's old technologies, lost its entire orbital mining belt. The drill stopped, the power grids died. A single message was found burned into the surface of the moon. Stolen hands must return what they took. Delvora Station, a research lab once used to dissect captured human AI, received a box floating in space. Inside every stolen file, neatly packaged, and on top of it, a human eye made of metal still blinking. But not every world resisted. Some began to listen. A group of historians on Ketras held a public apology broadcast, playing human stories once labeled fiction. A library was reopened. Records once burned were restored. The human fleet passed over Ketras and left it untouched for the first time in weeks. A world remained lit under the stars. That silence was the first hope the galaxy had seen. Back on Halon 6, the blackout lasted 12 hours. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything turned back on. Lights, engines, shields, but the ships in orbit never returned. They were gone forever. Governor Ron stood on a hilltop overlooking the sea, watching the stars slowly reappear. They gave us a chance, he whispered. Did we earn it? His aide asked. Ron didn't answer, because he didn't know in deep space. The full formation of the human fleet was almost complete. Thousands of black Titan-class ships forming a ring around the outer edge of the galaxy, not to conquer, but to surround. To contain. To judge. The stars were still there, but now Earth held the sky, and soon the galaxy would be asked the question no one wanted to answer. What did you do when you thought no one was watching? The galaxy had gone quiet. No one moved, no one spoke. No one dared to breathe too loudly across thousands of star systems. Space traffic halted. Cargo fleets parked in orbit. Civilians hid in underground shelters. Armies stood by with trembling hands, weapons armed but useless. The human fleet, 10,000 warships strong, had completed its circle. The ring now stretched from one edge of known space to the other, a wall of silence, a noose of memory. It wasn't war. It wasn't invasion. It was a warning with teeth above every major world. Humans hovered, still not speaking, still not firing. They waited, but no one knew what for. And so the galaxy held its breath. In the assembly, only 23 counselors remained. Dozens had fled, resigned, or vanished. Even Chancellor Velrix no longer gave orders. She simply sat at her desk, staring at a blank screen. Around her, aides whispered. Intelligence reports came in, but they were all the same. The fleet had stopped moving. Why aren't they attacking? Someone asked. Because they're not here to destroy, said Ralvek. He stood tall, still holding the ancient Earth files he had risked his life to uncover. They'd already won. This isn't war, it's judgment. But judgment for what? Velrix whispered. Ralvek answered without hesitation. For what we dead. And for what we chose to forget, on Charon V, an entire city turned its lights off in silence. No one told them to. They just did. As the shadow of a massive human warship passed overhead, the people stood in their homes, waiting. Some held hands. Some prayed. Others simply watched the sky. But nothing came. No message, no attack. Only the slow hum of old memory stirring in the dark, in a remote science outpost on Rinith Delta. An old AI that had been offline for centuries, suddenly powered on. Its creators had long died. Its language was old Terran code, and now it activated on its own, displaying a single message on its rusted interface. Earth watches. The scientists stared in horror. This wasn't a system breach. This was Earth's technology. Waking up across the galaxy, similar things began to happen. Abandoned human relic ships, satellites, probes, long believed, inactive, started humming, moving, responding. It was like the whole galaxy had been sleeping in a human museum, and now the exhibits had opened their eyes. At the center of this awakening stood a single system. Unknown.unmapped.unreachable.origin-0. Every council race had tried to find Earth's true location, but they never could. Not because it was gone, but because it was hidden by something deeper than cloaks or shields. It was hidden by guilt. And now, Earth was finally revealing itself. A dark rift opened in space near the galactic core. Not a wormhole, not a portal, just absence. Light bent around it. Time slowed. Ships turned away. From that rift came a single broadcast. No visuals, just a voice. Old, human, clear. You watched as we were erased. You helped bury our name. You pretended we never existed. Now the stars remember. We ask only one question. What will you do now that you can no longer lie? Then the signal ended. The effect was immediate. On Vosari Prime, a military parade was canceled mid-March. Soldiers dropped their weapons and began covering statues that once celebrated the Council's victory over a human threat. On Grelthus 9, a history museum burned its oldest section. A few tried to stop it. Others stood in the flames, weeping. They had just found out that the human exhibits weren't fiction. They were real. On Theros Moon, a group of children gathered in an open field, holding hands and singing the old human anthem. No one told them to. They had learned it from a broken satellite that started playing it 2 days earlier. Even the machines. Remembered, in one hidden bunker, Dr. Thari Dren sat beside Ralvek. She had aged quickly, grief and fear in every wrinkle of her face. But her eyes were sharp. "They're not coming to kill us," she said. "No," Ralvek replied. "They want us to face ourselves. Do you think we're ready?" Ralvek looked at the stars. "No, but it doesn't matter." The assembly finally sent out a signal. Not of surrender, not of resistance. A request. They asked to speak, to negotiate. To understand, the human fleet did not respond. Hours passed. Then a day. Silence. Until one ship descended. It did not land. It hovered above the council world of Nereafor, shining its shadow down upon the planet's surface like a silent monolith, and then it opened. Not fully, just enough to release a single object. A black box. It landed. Gently on the steps of the Grand Hall. No one dared approach at first. When they finally did, they found it unlocked. Inside was a book made of real paper. On the cover, the Earth emblem. Inside the truth, a complete, uncensored record of the Earth. War, names, coordinates, betrayals, declassified audio, orders given, orders broken. The moment humanity saved the galaxy and how the galaxy repaid them by trying to erase them. A footnote at the final page read, "History is not written by the victors. It is remembered by the survivors." There were no threats, no demands, no blood. Just truth. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. Entire worlds held vigils. Ships turned off their engines. People gathered in silence, watching the stars for signs, waiting for judgment. But Earth had already passed sentence. Now it waited to see what the galaxy would do with its shame in deep space. The circle of human warships pulsed with quiet power. Their engines glowed, their hulls shimmered. They did not advance, they simply remained present, heavy, unshakable. Across every world, every mind carried the same question: what happens when the lie ends? Because Earth wasn't punishing them, it was testing them. And tomorrow would be the galaxy's answer. A strange silence spread across the galaxy, not the kind that came from fear but from weight and expectation. The 10,000 human warships still held position around the stars. They did not move, they did not attack, but their very presence pressed down on every world like invisible gravity. Every species felt it, every planet, every fleet, every child who looked up at the stars now knew humanity had returned, and they were not here for war, they were here for an answer. On the surface of Nereafor, where the black box had been delivered, the assembly hall was now filled with silence. No arguments, no shouting, only truth. The book from Earth had been read, its pages scanned, its data confirmed. There was no denying it anymore. Every betrayal was documented, every secret exposed. The humans had fought, beside the galaxy, to save it. And the moment the threat was gone, the galaxy turned on them. Why? Because the humans had become too strong, too smart, too united. The other powers had feared them, so they erased them, or so they believed. But Earth never forgot, and now the galaxy couldn't either. Then it happened, exactly 7 days after the fleet stopped moving. A new transmission began. Not to one world, to all of them. It interrupted broadcasts, entered private comms, hijacked satellites. It couldn't be blocked. It couldn't be erased. The voice was human.com. Deep, strong, not angry, not loud, but final. We were once forgotten. Now we are remembered. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek to conquer. We only seek truth. And now, the time has come to ask the final question. A pause. All across the galaxy, billions of beings leaned in, holding their breath. Do you still believe you were right to betray us? Silence followed. The humans waited. 1 minute 5. An hour. Then the second message came. We are listening. Your answer will decide your fate. Panic hit instantly. On Veltrax 3, riots broke out in the streets. Some citizens blamed their leaders. Others cried for forgiveness. In old war museums, people rushed to tear down fake history, trying to fix what had already been done. On Norlax Prime, Military officials held public apologies. One general even knelt before a live broadcast and admitted the truth. We betrayed Earth, not because they failed USBOT, because they made us feel weak. On Halan 6, Governor Ron stepped in front of his people and said the words no leader had said in centuries. We were wrong. And in the quiet space between stars, the human ships remained still. They were listening. The Galactic Assembly met for the first time in full truth. No lies, no pride, no excuses, just Ferran guilt. Ralvek stood before the council, the book from Earth in his hands. We have two choices, he said, voice shaking. Admit everything. Stand before them not as leaders, but as survivors, and beg for forgiveness. Or Ralvek looked up. Or we say nothing, and they judge us. Some counselors refused, some claimed they had nothing to apologize for, that it had been generations since the betrayal, that today's people weren't responsible. But Dr. Theri Dren spoke up, her voice sharper than ever. Then why did we lie? She said, if we believed we were right, why did we bury the truth? Why erase Earth from the records? Because we knew. Deep down, we knew. No one answered, because the silence already had. On the fourth day, the final deadline approached. The human voice spoke again, this time softer. We were not your enemies. We were your mirror, and you shattered us out of fear. We are giving you one last chance. Speak truth, or remain silent forever. World by world, the responses began. Some were proud and brave, others trembling and desperate. But one thing became clear. The galaxy was finally speaking. On Vielor, the first planet to vote for the Earth betrayal, a massive gathering formed. Millions stood before an ancient broadcast tower. The leader spoke. We erased them, and we told ourselves it was justice. It wasn't. It was fear. On Delvora Station, where human AI had once been tortured for research, the surviving scientists broadcast a confession. They named names, released files, wept on camera. Even children on 1,000 worlds stood together, holding signs in human script. We remember now, but not every world responded. Some chose silence, some held their pride like a shield. One such world was Zenthari Prima, militarized empire that once helped design the virus used against human colonies. They said nothing. They prepared their ships. They refused to speak. The human fleet noticed, and the orbit above Zenthari went dark. No sound, no warning, just black. On the Day of Judgment, the human fleet sent no more messages. They simply waited, and the galaxy watched. Would Earth forgive? Would it strike? Would it vanish again? No one knew, not even the humans, because this wasn't just about punishment. This was a test of truth in the assembly. Chancellor Velrix stood to speak for the first time in weeks. She faced every remaining counselor, her hands shaking. I was born into the lie, she said. I believed it, taught it, defended it. She paused, but now I see the truth, and I speak it openly. We failed humanity. We failed ourselves. I don't know if they'll forgive us, but I ask for it anyway. Her message was broadcast across the stars. No excuses, just truth, in a quiet chamber far from politics. Ralvek stood alone, watching the skies. The human fleet above shimmered, silent, waiting. He didn't speak to them. He just whispered to himself. We've answered, now they decide. And across the galaxy, the final question still echoed. Do you still believe you were right to betray us? For the first time in centuries? The galaxy answered together, no. Across the galaxy, silence returned, but now it was different. It wasn't the silence of fear, it was the silence before fate. The final answers had been given. Some proud, some shameful, some honest, some too late. But all had spoken now. Earth would speak back. The human fleet, 10,000 strong, still floated like a dark crown around the stars. Its presence was heavier than any superweapon, a reminder of something ancient and unbroken. These ships were not just weapons, they were witnesses. And now, they were judges at 0 o'clock Galactic Standard Time. The void opened. Not a wormhole, not a gate, just a break in space itself. A slow, wide tear that stretched between stars. From it, Origin Zero emerged, the true core of Earth's presence. A single, massive structure the size of a moon, blacker than deep space, shaped like a forgotten crown. It had no windows, no lights, only presence. The stars bent around it, and when it arrived, the human fleet shifted. Every warship aligned to face it, every weapon lowered, and every signal across the galaxy went dark. Then the final message, played it, began with an image Earth, not how it looked today, but how it once was, blue, green, alive. Then images of the war, humans fighting beside aliens, dying, winning, bleeding to protect a future that betrayed them. Then, silence. A figure appeared, human, no armor, no crown, just a plain black uniform. His voice echoed in every language. You asked us who we are. We are the forgotten, the erased, the betrayed. You asked what we want. We want nothing, not revenge, not war, only remembrance. You answered our question. Many of you told the truth. Others still hide in shadows. We are not here to decide for you. We are here to end the lie. And now, that lie ends. From the void, something unfolded. Not a weapon, a signal. It was sent to every world, every archive, every terminal, a data packet massive and permanent. It rewrote every digital record in the galaxy, restoring the full history of Earth, its rise, its war, its sacrifice, and its betrayal. No firewall stopped it. No code blocked it. Truth became unerasable. Then came the last act. The human fleet separated into three forces. The first group of warships, minus 3,000 vessels, left the galaxy entirely, vanishing into the blackness beyond the stars. Where they went, no one knew. Some say they returned home. Others say they guard the edge of reality itself. The second group, 6,000 ships, dispersed across the galaxy, but not for war. They settled into orbit above newly honest worlds, not to attack, but to watch. These ships became Earth's memory keepers. Silent guardians of truth, their presence a reminder Earth never forgets again. The final group, 1,000 warships, remained. Above the worlds that had chosen silence, they did not destroy those worlds. They simply cut them off. No signals in, no signals out. These planets became forgotten. Not by punishment, but by choice. Earth gave them exactly what they had given it. Erasure. The Origin Zero structure slowly returned to the rift. The void began to close. But before it did, one last message echoed, We are not gods. We are not rulers. We are not your enemy. We are the cost of forgetting. And now you will never forget again. The structure disappeared. The rift sealed, and the stars were quiet once more. Across the galaxy, something strange happened. Not fear, not rebellion, but renewal. Statues of Earth were built. Memorials raised. Schools added Earth's story to their history. Children spoke human words in their prayers. Flags of Earth flew beside other nations, not as conquerors, but as guardians of truth, because the myth had ended and the memory had returned. The Galactic Assembly was reborn, not as rulers, but as listeners. Ralvek stood before them, no longer dismissed or mocked, a historian, a witness, and now a bridge. He said only one thing, never again. And on a quiet moon, Dr. Thari Dren looked to the stars, her voice soft. They could have burned us all, she whispered. But instead, they reminded us what we were supposed to be. A voice behind her spoke Ralvek. No, he said, they reminded us what they were supposed to be. In deep space, beyond maps and light, a human ship floated alone. Inside, a child stared out a window. Where are we going? The child asked out. The teacher smiled. Forward, final words. The stars forgot, but humanity remembered. And now, so would everyone. Not through force, not through fear, but through the weight of truth. Earth was never a myth. It was a mirror. And now the galaxy could finally see its reflection forever. Across the galaxy, silence returned, but now it was different. It wasn't the silence of fear, it was the silence before fate. The final answers had been given. Some proud, some shameful, some honest, some too late. But all had spoken now. Earth would speak back. The human fleet, 10,000 strong, still floated like a dark crown around the stars. Its presence was heavier than any superweapon, a reminder of something ancient and unbroken. These ships were not just weapons, they were witnesses. And now, they were judges at 0 o'clock Galactic Standard Time. The void opened. Not a wormhole, not a gate, just a break in space itself, a slow, wide tear that stretched between stars. From it, Origin Zero emerged, the true core of Earth's presence, a single, massive structure the size of a moon, blacker than deep space, shaped like a forgotten crown. It had no windows, no lights, only presence. The stars bent around it, and when it arrived, the human fleet shifted, every warship aligned to face it, every weapon lowered, and every signal across the galaxy went dark. Then the final message, played it, began with an image Earth, not how it looked today, but how it once was, blue, green, alive. Then images of the war, humans fighting beside aliens, dying, winning, bleeding to protect a future that betrayed them.